It is 10 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. Starting today through March 4th, NFL teams can designate franchise or transition tags to their players. Some reports out of Cincinnati have indicated the Bengals could choose to franchise tag wide receiver T. Higgins for the second consecutive year. Nashville Soccer Club officially announced the signing of attacking midfielder Ahmed Kazem this morning from the Swedish club Elfsborg. Nashville kicks off the 2025 season Saturday night against New England at Geodis Park. International hockey, Team USA fell to Sweden last night, 2-1 in the Four Nations face-off. Preds forward Gus Nyquist had the tying goal for Sweden. The U.S. had already qualified for the Four Nations face-off championship, which will be played Thursday against Canada. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right, fun's over. I'm back. Thanks for holding it down for that President's Day off. I'm sure Lucas and Jackson did a great job.
Ran it into the ground.
Yeah, well, again, the floor is so low for what it takes to run this thing into the ground that I almost want to give you more credit than you probably deserve. But I'm sure, things were planned a certain way, and then they went a very different way, as is typically the case with the radio show.
Oopsies.
No oopsies, except Jackson, which I appreciate the effort of the NFL Draft Prospect Spelling Bee that we did at the end of the show.
I'm sure that was invigorating.
The issue was, I am a documented spelling bee champion, which you are not, but the issue...
There is indisputable evidence of you tweeting us your 8th grade yearbook?
Grade. Yes.
Yeah, you're even in 8th grade, that dome, unmistakable.
Mm-hmm. I was really cool back then, too. Everybody wanted to hang out with the spelling bee champion. It was a little overwhelming. But the only thing Jackson did not do was... make sure to nail down the pronunciations. So
I can pronounce any of those names.
Don't think there was a single name that he posed to me that was. What was your initial pronunciation of T-Mac's first name?
I don't even remember.
It was like Tayshiora, something absolutely insanely butchered.
Okay,
so
good. I'm glad to know
everything went swimmingly until the spelling bee at the end of the show before polls.
Exactly the plan.
Yes,
I know it's Tetaroya now.
Par for the course.
Well, I'm happy that you know now after the fact. After the exercise.
I figured it out during the segment.
Okay, very good.
In real time.
That's not the objective.
Oopsies. Missed you.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
I was in the car for a brief period of the radio show yesterday, and I heard you say something that I vehemently disagree with, and it was regarding the most interesting offseason in the NFL. Your case was for the Bengals. Now, there is some news on the Bengals front, who they are expected to franchise tag today en route to trying to seek a long-term deal with T. Higgins. That came out yesterday and has since been confirmed by various outlets. The franchise tag window now opens today through 3 p.m. Central Time on March the 4th, and there are some interesting names that Titans fans are lusting after that may or may not be available. But what was your case for the Bengals? Refresh the audience for people who didn't hear it.
Bengals are in a Super Bowl window. We agree with that, even though they missed the playoffs last year. I agree with Joe Burrow when he says the window is my career.
Yep.
They have this pivot point of multiple players, top of market players, the best wide receiver in the NFL in Jamar Chase, a guy who, if he is to take a contract from the highest bidder in free agency, if he is to become a free agent, and T. Higgins will get wide receiver one type of money. Trey Hendrickson just led the NFL in sacks. He's had 17.5 sacks each of the last 2 years, top of market edge rusher. And then you pile on Mike Gesicki on top of that. You pile on their lead tackler, Jermaine Pratt, asking for a trade. And it feels like a big pivot point for a Super Bowl contending team, but a franchise that has been notoriously reluctant to pay big money to its own players, all in one window. And then you've got on top of all of it, Joe Burrow campaigning, talking about the wiggle room they have with the cap and literally suggesting what he thinks the franchise should do. And then Bengals GM Duke Tobin's at the Senior Bowl saying, we can't pay everybody. So, yeah, I'm fascinated by the Bengals offseason.
Duke Tobin with one of the more fascinating ways to answer questions. I don't know if you played any audio from him, but I remember asking him a couple of questions last year at the Combine. Given that they hired Brian Callahan, and it's just, anyway, he's got an interesting way of answering questions. But I understand the case. I think it's a reasonable argument that you've made, but you're wrong. Because the Bengals were not a playoff team last year, and of course, it's about how they build back up to regain a level of competitiveness in a wildly competitive AFC. I do find the Joe Burrow stuff compelling, but he was doing that during Super Bowl week because he was not participating in the game, nor the postseason. Lucas, what team was participating in the game that week that has significant questions heading into this offseason?
I know you're going to talk about the Chiefs here. Go ahead, make your case.
They have some critical free agent holes. Trey Smith is somebody the Titans fans are going to talk about a lot. Hollywood Brown is an unrestricted free agent, as is DeAndre Hopkins, as is linebacker Nick Bolton and safety Justin Reed. Key components to what has been a very successful stretch of football for the Kansas City Chiefs. They got the 31st overall pick in the draft, obviously. They have $5.1 million in projected cap space to do all of this legwork, be it in free agency or the restructuring of contracts or extensions, several things that they have to address. And the biggest offseason storyline is, are they done? Is the dynasty over? Is Patrick Mahomes washed because the Philadelphia Eagles went out there and knocked him around a little bit?
Oh, come on. That's your case for the Chiefs having the most interesting offseason.
No, they are the most interesting team in the sport, full stop, because of him. Because of Patrick Mahomes, they remain the most interesting team in the sport for the same reasons that Brady's Patriots were the most interesting team in the sport for their duration. One, they look like they can bleed. The Philadelphia Eagles just made them do that, which was not completely refuting a lot of the narrative because plenty of people had sound, logical reasons for picking Philadelphia. You didn't know that it would look that overwhelming, but it's about the sustainability of the championship aspirations that the Kansas City Chiefs have, and you feel better about the sustainability, or you feel like you can assign more trust in, all right, the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes are going to figure it out. But this is not an easy thing to figure out for the same reason that the Bengals are trying to figure this out. It's not a turnkey type of situation. You just cited Jamar Chase here. You smooth things out with Trey Hendrickson there, and you're back in the big game, baby. That's not as simple as a lot of people in this type of offseason will make it seem. For the Chiefs, it's rather complicated, and that division is only getting better, and I know that they have the best quarterback, and I know that they have the best coach, but there is no disputing to me that heading into this offseason, that the team that was not terribly explosive and leaning heavily on their defense, that did not necessarily have answers in the Super Bowl the way that they've been able to have answers week in, week out, leading up to that final game, they have a fascinating offseason ahead of them, and they are the team that is perpetually in the championship game, not the team that just missed the playoffs because their defense was a disaster. I get it, though.
No, it's up there. It's up there for sure. Here's the thing. Chiefs showed that they can bleed against the Bucs, and I know that was Tom Brady, but it was also that Bucs front that eviscerated the Chiefs' offensive line, and it was pretty much deja vu after that Super Bowl as to what we're talking about after this Super Bowl. What'd they do? A couple years later.
This was worse, though.
They won back-to-back.
I mean, I know that it was a decisive Buccaneers win, but this was a bona fide ass-kicking.
It was. No, it was worse.
There was never any sign that they were going to be able to get off the mat. We all just kept giving them the benefit of the doubt, and then it just never happened.
For sure. They showed their humanity, so to speak, but we've seen the Chiefs do that, And we've seen the dynasty continue. The dynasty will continue. I am not worried about the Kansas City Chiefs. There are interesting moves that have to be made.
Conversation.
Oh, yes. Buck wants to be on the side of the Chiefs dynasty is over and Patrick Mahomes is washed.
That's not it at all.
I will gladly step over to this line.
As if it is as if it's a given. And I'm saying right now, it's never felt like less of a given.
I get what you're saying, but I am very, very hesitant to step over that line when it comes to the Chiefs and say, ooh, you might be done. No, I'm not going there.
I'm just saying that they look more gettable than they've ever looked throughout the course of these last, when was his first Super Bowl win?
19 season.
19 season. So, January of 2020, the first Patrick Mahomes Super Bowl win. So in that 5 years since then, they have never looked more gettable, which makes it compelling for teams like the Bengals and teams like, even in their own division, the Chargers, trying to figure it out. How can they solve the Patrick Mahomes Chiefs problem? And it's not, Philadelphia is something that people can look at and say, well, just draft a pass rush. Just go get a pass rush, and that'll be the thing that stops Mahomes. Look, the Eagles did it when there's a million different reasons why the Eagles have had as much success as they've had, which allowed them to get back to that point to win another Super Bowl after their last Super Bowl victory in 17 season.
17 season, I
17
believe.
Season, 18 Super Bowl. I want to say.
Yeah, that's right.
Ballpark.
All the Chiefs have ever done in this era is figure it out. So, with the Bengals...
Except for the most recent sample size.
Okay, but all the Chiefs have ever done when they show a glimpse of humanity is figure it out and continue one of the most impressive dynasties in a short amount of time we have ever seen, if not the most in the NFL. For the Bengals, that is not the case. The Bengals have to do something unprecedented here. As crazy as it is, there is a level of precedence for the Chiefs bouncing back from a situation like this and continuing the most dominant run in football. For the Bengals, we've never seen them have to deal with something this extreme with the level of star power on that roster. They're both good arguments, and it's an interesting offseason in the AFC as a whole.
615-737-1045 is the number. If you would like to join the conversation, we would be happy to have your participation at any point. The F&M Bank chat also available to you. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. If you would like to make your thoughts known there, Jay on YouTube says the narrative around having the best quarterback was dissolved by the Eagles, like the best quarterback giving you the best chance to succeed in a game like the Super Bowl, or really just any given game, right? It's about, obviously you have to win enough games to get into the postseason. You have to win your playoff games to get to the Super Bowl. I'm not tossing that to the side, but I do think that there's some element of, all right, in any one given sample size, are you going to be able to rely on the best player to elevate a team entirely to the point where they can have a championship, or are you better off going with the best team overall so that you're just so overwhelming to the point where the best quarterback in the sport can't get off the ground? That's the conversation that the Eagles have. I mean, these things ebb and flow, right? These conversations are cyclical, just like franchises' success and the way that teams approach things tactically are cyclical. So it's not like the Eagles have granted us the answer to football for the foreseeable future. But in this particular generation, dealing with these kind of quarterbacks, how much more successful can you be in that way? Speaking of team building, the install, the live show, it's coming up May the 2nd. I know it seems like it's a long time away, but Lucas, we've already sold 50 tickets to this thing. The tickets are going to go fast. The GA, the general admission tickets, can get you in the door for $30. If you don't know what the event is, Greg Cosell of NFL Films flies in the Friday after the draft to break down the entirety of the Titans' free agent acquisitions and their draft class. We'll do it at the Analog Room in the Hutton Hotel Friday, May the 2nd. You can get tickets today, starting as low as $30. There's also a VIP option at 1045thezone.com. It's going to be a great time. You're going to get the opportunity to ask Greg questions, and we have some other special things planned that we will announce as we get closer to the date. So 1045thezone.com to get your tickets to the Install Live show today. Speaking of the draft, Titans pick strategy. Would you rather them go with the safest possible option, or would you rather them go with the place that you think their ceiling is the highest? We'll explain what that conversation is about coming up next. Will I have enough money when I retire? When should I start to draw from Social Security? If these questions keep you up at night, let me introduce you to the team that's there to keep you on the right track and guide you through it. Trajan Wealth, Trajan Wealth. Trajan Wealth is not just any financial firm. They're your partners in securing your financial future. They're more than just a fiduciary firm. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind. So call them today at 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000, or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement. A lot of Sabrina Carpenter on the SNL 50. Did you watch that?
Whole thing.
Okay.
Every minute.
All weekend?
All
Did
weekend.
you watch the music specials too, or just the 3-hour Sunday show?
I started the homecoming concert, which is also 3 hours long. I started watching it last night, and it's fantastic.
Spectacular.
Oh my goodness. They mixed in the sketches, right? The Lonely Island medley was good.
Yeah.
The Will Ferrell.
Lonely Island medley wasn't good. It was
phenomenal, yeah. But the acts that they've got there, the range, man, it's really, really good. So yeah, I'm about halfway through it. Eddie Vedder's tribute to Tom Petty was fantastic. And, they got Wyclef. Just so many artists from different genres out there among all the sketches. SNL has crushed this weekend.
We are going to get to the best strategy for the Titans in the draft. Is it best to play it safe and go with the thing that's the most fail-proof? There's nothing to make a draft pick completely fail-proof, but there is some logic to the idea of, all right, this is the thing that is the safest and will set you up with the best possible chance to succeed versus the highest possible ceiling, which leads you more down the quarterback discussion. But before we do that, lest you think that I get my strong opinions from myself, I think it's hereditary because you two had talked a great deal about SNL 50. I don't watch Saturday Night Live, not for any reason than, I don't really care a tremendous amount.
You didn't grow up on it whatsoever?
Not really. I don't know. It was
in the Rising household, they listened to classical music and read War and Peace before bed on a Saturday night.
That's actually closer to the truth.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, it's ironic.
I'm very familiar with the works of Mozart and Johann Sebastian Bach because that's what my mom likes, and that's kind of the way that things were filtered through. So yeah, you're not too far off there.
I was watching SNL with my parents as a kid.
Yep.
Your favorite movie is The Blues Brothers, correct?
Correct.
That is born out of an SNL sketch.
I am aware of that. But to the point of me having strong opinions and you two thinking I'm just, these things just pop out of nowhere or I do things for the sake of being controversial. I got a text from my mother on Sunday night. This was right before the SNL 50 thing began, the 3-hour production. It said, you have to watch SNL 50 Years Tonight. Starts now. And I said, okay, maybe. Grace put it on, and I watched the majority of it. And then I got a text 2 hours later from my mother, SNL, a disappointment, by the way. Talk to you tomorrow.
Did you see Scared Straight?
No.
It was the very last sketch. It was Will Ferrell and Eddie Murphy and Kenan Thompson doing the Scared Straight sketch.
I don't think I made it. I don't think I made it to the very end. I didn't catch the very beginning, and I didn't catch the very end. By then, I was like, all right, I've seen enough SNL. But yeah, apparently the only person that did not enjoy the SNL 50 was my mother. Not about it.
Shame. Jay in the F&M Bank chat says SNL hasn't been good in 30 years.
No, everybody says that. Here's the thing that I will say about that, and I understand that I come at this from a criticism or from a place of criticism where I don't watch SNL, but I know the cast. Like, I know Kristen Wiig. I know Tina Fey. Okay. I know Dan Aykroyd. Like, I know generations of cast members because obviously they've been a part of the pop culture fabric for my entire lifetime and obviously predating every one of us on this show. There was not a person out there on the stage or on the set at any given point that I wasn't happy to see.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
These things always go through a process of, oh, well, it's not as funny as the Will Ferrell years, or it's not as funny as the Eddie Murphy years, or all these different things.
Yeah.
And then they brought them all back, and all of them were great. And I understand it's a 50th performance, and it's just one night as opposed to every Saturday night. But like, it's just something that it's almost like to bring it back to draft analysis. It's almost like when we go through the draft process. Oh, next year's quarterback class is going to be so much better. You have no idea.
SNL's not the same.
It's just something that people say.
They don't churn out the big hitters the way they used to in terms of the cast members, but everybody has their own golden era. Like for me, it's
the big hitters are doing podcasts more than they're doing SNL, like the comedic big hitters.
Yeah, it's hard. Exactly. It's as hard as ever. I mean, one of those big hitters is Shane Gillis, who, joined the SNL cast and then promptly was let go of the SNL cast for some old tweets.
Before he hit it
big, yes. But he was almost on SNL. That would have been his path beforehand. But for me, the golden era is Bill Hader, Jason Sudeikis, Andy Samberg, Kristen Wiig, and that's talking about 15 years ago.
Also my golden era.
Yeah. So everybody's got
golden
their
era?
own.
Yeah, that's my golden era of SNL.
How old do you have to be before you can declare something your golden era? I feel like you haven't aged properly into
He's 4 years older than me.
No, he's
and it's the
saying,
same
just
one.
saying his favorite era of Saturday Night Live in his lifetime. Everybody has their own. That's what makes it cool.
So, from SNL analysis to draft analysis, there was an article in the Tennessean that I very much enjoyed. And as is typically the case, articles that I enjoy in the Tennessean are typically from Nick Suss, who is my friend and colleague who covers the Titans. And he put out a very well thought out piece this morning on the simple reason why Abdul Carter is the smart pick for the Tennessee Titans in the 2025 NFL draft. Now, if I just left you with the headline alone, why would you assume that Abdul Carter is the safe pick, or rather, as he describes it, the quote-unquote smart pick for the Tennessee Titans in this upcoming draft, before we get into the meat of the article?
Safe?
Smart. Smart is the word that he uses specifically. What one reason would Abdul Carter be the smart pick for the Titans?
He feels like the pick that can most instantly impact the game, as Chad Brinker would say, tilt a game in your favor, that can most assuredly do that from day one, right? Just a quarterback hunter, an edge rusher with insane athletic ability. I know there are, discussions about his size, but when you look at what he did at Penn State this past year, it speaks for itself. Just as a guy that can day one step in and go get the quarterback. That's what I think when I think of safe or smart or high floor, however you want to put it.
Sure, you can boil it down to this. And it's worth, Nick goes into specific detail as to why this is the case, but it's as simple as what's the learning curve more difficult for? A quarterback, a wide receiver corner hybrid, or a pass rusher? There's less of a curve for the pass rusher, because at the end of the day, the conversation can be, all right, go get him. Like it's not necessarily about scheme. There is some scheme fit stuff, obviously, and how you deploy players. Is you going to be a hand in the dirt kind of guy? Are you going to have him standing up? Are you going to deploy him around the formation? All of these things, yes, are detail-oriented things that have to be worked out throughout the course of a player's installation into a scheme, but it's easier for the pass rusher than it is for the player that none of us have ever seen before in Travis Hunter, where, yeah, he's being projected as a defensive back right now, but there's still a curiosity of, okay, how can I get this player involved into my offensive system versus the two quarterbacks whom both are described as being very specific. Their success will be very specific to the places that they land. You could say that about any quarterback. I understand that, but that's more the dialogue around these two than, for example, it was last year's group, even if you didn't have the group having as many as 6 first-round quarterbacks as you did, and there are some very specific scheme fits out of that six-man group that got drafted in the first round last year. The degree of difficulty for Abdul Carter is less. Does that inherently make him the smartest pick? It makes him the safest pick.
There's an asterisk to that.
I think that's an interesting kind of conversation to flesh out. Like, what are the degrees of difference between the safest pick and the smartest pick? Because there's plenty of people who would be like, keep it simple, stupid. Draft the quarterback. You need one. That's the smart move. Don't get big-brained over it. Don't overthink it.
No, but I don't think that's that's not good enough reasoning to me. You need a quarterback, so
that's
draft
a lot
one.
of the conversation that's being doled out for the people that are pro quarterback first overall. For example, Curtis is somebody who I see on a regular basis in both the chat here and on primetime and anywhere else. I guess I'm doing live stream broadcasts. He says, so draft a quarterback, easy. When in doubt, draft a QB. That is...
In fact, that's how you get yourself in a bad spot.
Correct. I could not disagree with that logic more.
When in doubt, just pick one.
Just get one. One of those guys, the guy that throws the ball, go get one.
I guess a roll of the dice no matter what.
As we get a replay here of the Georgia-Texas SEC championship game for some reason. What, are the soaps not on, or is Paramount CBS still negotiating?
They figured it out. They secured a multi-year deal.
So, like Quinn Ewers, for example, if for whatever reason something happens in the draft and the Titans aren't picking number 1 overall anymore.
Man, we haven't even mentioned him.
Right? But let's just use him because he's on our television screens right now. If the Titans trade out of number 1 overall, and they don't trade back too terribly far, enough to garner a reasonable draft pick in the first round and pick up additional draft capital, but both of the quarterbacks go before the Titans get the opportunity to make their first round pick. By that logic, are you saying, well, when in doubt, draft Jackson Dart or draft Quinn Ewers? Of course not. Of course you're not having that conversation. Those are lesser prospects at the top of the quarterback draft class, and you are not going to overdraft a position just because you are in desperate need of that position.
But it is the most overthinkable position, right, is quarterback. I mean, Kyle Shanahan is on record saying they traded up for Trey Lance because he had too much time to think about it. He talked himself into Trey Lance instead of Mac Jones, which was initially where the Niners were leaning in that draft. Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, whichever one you think is the best player, there's not really a consensus on the number 1 overall player in this draft. People seem to be pretty split.
I agree.
Like you'll have the Daniel Jeremiahs of the world saying it's Abdul Carter, and the Field Yates of the world, whoever, saying no, it's definitely Travis Hunter. So by definition, there's no major consensus. Those two are the least overthinkable players in this draft. Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, where you have no doubt that, okay, best player in this draft, probably one of those two guys. You kind of, I think, have to talk yourself a little bit into taking one of these quarterbacks at number 1 overall.
Let me just push back on that first part, though, because so Travis Hunter, you are operating in a degree of we've never seen a player do the kind of things, both as far as the mental acumen required to play 2 positions at a high level, the physical gifts beyond just the athleticism, because he's playing the 2 most athletic positions on either side of the ball. Corner is the most athletic position in football, or the position that requires the most athleticism. I'd argue that wide receivers probably got a high level of athleticism that's required on the offensive side of the football, if not the most. But is he the best corner? If you were to just say, all right, he's a corner, is he the best corner? Or if you were to do the inverse and say, all right, he's a wide receiver, is he the best wide receiver?
Yeah, that's
because
the hardest thing to do with Travis Hunter in this draft.
To me, that takes him out of the conversation of, it would make me lean more towards what Daniel Jeremiah is saying. That Abdul Carter is definitively the best player in the draft. I think there is, again, I'm nitpicking here, but if you open the door to those kind of conversations specific to Travis Hunter, I don't think that you can definitively say, if he's not the best at his position, what makes him the best player in the draft? Other than he has crazy athletic upside, and he's probably going to figure it out at the next level.
Well, the thing that made him the best player in college football last year, that's the question, right? Is that the thing that can make him the best player in this draft? It's a huge question. Mm-hmm. To what degree can he play on both sides? We have no idea. There's no precedence, none. So,
throw out, Titans fans probably have in their heads, some of them, Adoree Jackson. It's not even in the same conversation.
Not even the same stratosphere.
Not even remotely. So don't give me, well, they've already tried something like this and it didn't work. The Adoree thing was he was a track star. that was a solid corner. I mean, he's a first-round pick, late teens. What was Adoree, 17th, 16th, something like that, in the same draft that Corey Davis went 5th. Adoree was no surefire thing as the top corner in the draft. He was a very athletic player who had track in his background, and they tried some gadget stuff on offense. That's not what Travis Hunter is. That's not what Travis Hunter is as a corner. That's not what Travis Hunter is as a wide receiver. So, what they are going to do, of course, none of us know, and free agency will help inform this, and you can weigh in this conversation if you would like to, 615-737-1045. But if it's you, all right, the Titans fan listening to this conversation on February the 18th with what will be at the Combine. The show will be live at the Combine a week from today. And you'll hear from Mike Borgonzi. You'll hear from Brian Callahan. They'll have press conferences. I would have some level of expectation that one of the two, if not both of them, will be on the radio show from Indianapolis during that week. Would you rather them go with the thing that has, maybe we do it this way. Safe to me means the least amount of variance possible.
Yeah.
Would you rather them go with the safest possible thing to where you know almost definitively what you're getting beyond the intangibles that you talk about? How hard a worker is this player? How quickly can they adapt and take in new information and apply it technically to what it is their skill set is going to be? Just generally, how intellectually capable are they? Because these are all things that you learn throughout the course of the next couple of weeks. Is it safe or is it ceiling that you would look at in this particular situation? 615-737-1045. Speaking of the Combine, we're going to be live there all next week. I'll head up Monday night and we'll do shows Tuesday through Friday from Indianapolis. You can tune in and hear our coverage thanks to Wholesale Supply. We're going to have analysts, coaches, general managers from around the league talking about the upcoming draft class. For more information on our coverage from Indianapolis, visit 1045thezone.com for more details. To me, the best player in the draft if they pick number one, then the best player in the draft has to be the number one overall pick. And to me, I'm willing to hear some arguments, but it's pretty close to concrete on Abdul Carter is the best player to me in this draft class.
Yeah.
How many less questions do I have to ask about him than I do the other three?
In the safe versus ceiling discussion, the quarterback position, almost by nature, immediately falls under the ceiling category as a draft prospect. At this point, is there any such thing as a safe quarterback prospect in the NFL draft?
No.
How can we say there is when we've seen what has happened with Trevor Lawrence? When we've seen what has happened, I mean, just the amount with Sam Darnold, with all of these, in the early onset of his career in New York, how many can't miss quarterback prospects have we seen just falter? So how can we sit here and say there's any such thing as a safe quarterback prospect in the draft?
It's
especially
the least
in this
safe
draft
position. It's the most important. Because honestly, to me, the players are less of a high risk proposition than the organizations that they go to are. Like my concern is not necessarily, like, I know Cam Ward to be a hugely talented football player. I know Shedeur Sanders to be a hugely talented football player. To me, I'm not like, I know that we're going to nitpick their skill sets and nitpick, how should they be drafted number one overall? Are they worthy of the number one overall draft pick? Do they have the requisite skills? What do you see on tape? Are all these different things? When to me, it's more about the organizations that are drafting them. I feel less good, less secure about the organizations than I do the players, because that has such a huge amount of impact on what happens to these players as a result. It's why if I was an NFL player, or if I was an NFL player of any kind of consequence, I would actively advocate for the draft to be done away with, because I would hate the idea of not getting to have a legitimate say into what my future viability, what my future professional viability is going to be, because an organization might ruin me. That's a real conversation. We can take your phone calls on this coming up next Well, actually, do I have things to give away?
Find out next.
Not helpful. What in sports made you say, oh no? 615-737-1045 is the number. If you give us the best submission, perhaps we'll pull something out of the nebulous prize bucket for you. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. What do I have, Jackson? What do we got back there? What'd you pull out of the nebulous prize bucket besides the wonderful $100 gift card from A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa online at amomentspeace.com if you need a gift for your friend, family, or loved one.
You can go see Styx and Kevin Cronin plus Don Felder at First Bank Amphitheater on August 4th.
615-737-1045 is the number if you would like to let us know what in sports made you say, oh, no. Mine was the USA-Canada hockey match in the Four Nations competition on Saturday night. Not because the hockey was violent and entertaining, but because the Canadians in Canada, understandably so, it is a charged political atmosphere currently right now between the United States of America's government and our neighbors to the north. With what is going on between the two leading entities of the two countries. And so the Canadians in attendance for the USA-Canada match booed during the national anthem. Now, I'm not so stupid as to think that they were booing the national anthem. I think that they were booing the President of the United States of America, and that was their most effective way to make their displeasure known during the anthem. Is it a fail-safe approach? No, because it looks like you're booing the hockey players, Team USA, the flag, all these things that people are hyper defensive about. And, I'm sure people are defensive about President Trump as well. But it did not play out in the favor of the Canadians. There were how many fights? 3 fights started within the first 9 minutes of the game. It was electric.
No, 9 seconds.
9 seconds of the game. It was.
I'm still laughing at you calling it a hockey match. It's like the Chance the Rapper sketch on, speaking of Saturday Night Live.
Hey, let's do that hockey.
Do that hockey.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like hockey match is fine.
Let's play that match.
It's a hockey game.
Oh, it's the same thing.
It's a tennis match.
It is technically the same game. I've never heard a hockey game referred to as a match.
I feel like that's not that.
That's weird.
That's not that too
like
far.
chamber.
Okay, you guys are getting hung up on very unimportant things about this. Either way,
it was electric.
The Canadians booed the anthem. The United States players were certainly premeditated in their desire to fight beyond the anthem. The booing of the anthem exacerbated the situation, and then the USA went on to kick Canada's ass in their favorite sport, which is hockey, in the hockey match.
The hockey match. Okay, so
I really think you guys are making it.
I will say, we'll put it to a poll.
I don't think it's
in hockey. Is it a game or is it a match?
Why can't it be both? Is it a soccer game or a soccer match? You are somebody who gets
can be both.
So bothered when people try to capitulate to soccer parlance by using terms like soccer pitch.
Yeah, I don't
just say soccer field. Just say soccer field.
Right,
okay, here I am.
And people feel like they have to call it a pitch.
All right, you're being dramatic.
It's one of the best moves the National Hockey League has ever made, is dropping the All-Star game for this.
How can they not make this an annual thing? I wish that they would do away with the All-Star game entirely and just replace it with this.
Well, meanwhile, the NBA All-Star game is bottoming out. The overall opinion on it has never been more negative. And as the NHL crushes its quote-unquote All-Star weekend, the NBA... nobody that watched it enjoyed it. It seems like the players could care less about it.
Did that many people watch it? I just assumed everybody was watching the SNL stuff.
Players could certainly care less about the dunk contest, players in the NBA. Kevin Durant tweeted
Didn't a G League player win it?
Yeah, Mac McClung won it for the third year in a row.
Why isn't I know he's technically a member of an NBA roster. This is going to be my dumbest thing in sports.
Kevin Durant, this is my oh no, tweeted this yesterday. I think it's more fun to complain about the NBA than to actually watch it. Crazy. Cancel All-Star Weekend and let's just give everybody a break since we're so miserable around this time. That is Kevin Durant. I agree with him.
He's being facetious. He's not being literal.
But still, it depicts the opinion overall on the NBA All-Star game right now.
Yeah, but he's saying it tongue-in-cheek. He's saying it, if you're so miserable, let's just cancel it all and take the week off.
I bet you he'd rather cancel it all and take the week off.
I'm certain he is, but I don't think that tweet is indicative of that behavior. Now, maybe it is because Kevin Durant is, very transparent on social media. And he very much interacts with people that, respond.
Oh, yeah. He is all up in the replies with everybody that is chiming in.
A lot of spare time. Jackson?
Yes, I'm going with Terrence Shannon Jr. Had his jersey retired in Illinois this past weekend, and they hung it upside down and raised it into the rafters upside down.
At that point, once you discover that wait, so I didn't see this live. I just saw the headline. Was it raised upside down and then revealed to be upside down once it was in the rafters?
It was revealed and then went up.
Okay, once you see it, that it is upside down after the reveal, you do not need to go through the pomp and circumstance of then raising the upside down banner into the rafters. Can somebody not have?
Yeah, what do you suggest?
Yeah, what's your suggestion?
Put it on pause and be like, hey, our bad, let's flip this thing real quick.
Well, no, the ceremony's in progress. Like, that's what happens.
To the bit.
It unfurls and it goes up into the rafters. They're not going to say, hold on, we messed up. Go turn it around. Now do it after the fact. But like the ceremony is in progress. You're committed at that point.
Yeah, you're committed to the bit.
Yeah,
so you're going to look like even more of an idiot by raising the upside.
You look like an idiot no matter what.
But you look even more foolish when you raise the upside down banner into the rafters just because the ceremony is already in progress. That's the worst argument either of you have had.
It's just slowly going up upside down. So like you want the music to stop, the PA to say, hold on. Somebody runs out with the ladder. Couple people run out there. Everything's on hold for 7 to 8 minutes.
Stupid it is to raise the upside down thing. We can't stop it now.
No, you
can't. It's still on the ground.
No, you're
take a beat.
You're committed.
Flip the thing. And then send it up so you don't look like an even bigger idiot.
It's hanging. It unfurls. It is hanging.
Yes, I understand
It is
that.
in the process of being sent up there.
How long could it possibly take to turn the thing right side up?
Now they're committed. They just have to leave it.
So stupid. 615-737-1045 is the number for the opportunity to win Styx tickets and a $100 gift card to a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. What in sports made you say, oh no? Jordan is first.
Hey, guys. My oh no is the mayor of Philadelphia. A few weeks ago, she couldn't spell Eagles, and during her Super Bowl parade speech, she stated, nothing is possible when we work together. It's been a rough few weeks for the mayor.
No, it happened again.
She did it at the parade. You didn't see this making the rounds on the internet?
No, I didn't.
A very difficult time for the mayor of Philadelphia.
Nothing is possible when we work together.
Yeah. Everybody understood what she said. But given the fact that she just misspelled Eagles whilst trying to rally the city of Philadelphia to her cause, she's going to be the most unelectable official anywhere in America.
This Eagles Super Bowl run is just single-handedly tearing apart her political career.
Can I hear from the mayor of Philadelphia at the Eagles championship parade?
And they did the work, reminded us all through their excellence that nothing is possible when we work together.
Tough scene. Apparently she went on too long and Eagles fans were chanting, wrap it up, wrap it up.
That's right.
Just a couple of weeks.
That's so brutal. What's worse? The misspelling is worse. The way she did it.
I don't know. Telling the championship crowd that nothing is possible when we all work together.
Worse than Elxus?
I don't know. They're both bad. Can they be equally bad?
Oh, that's so funny.
Let me hear you all say, E-L-G-L-E-S, Eagles!
I take it back. That's worse.
They're spelling it right behind her.
That's right.
She's just
so
plowing through.
She flustered the people that were spelling it correctly because they thought they had gotten it wrong. It's a great submission by Jordan. We're in the clubhouse.
Phenomenal.
Eric is next.
Hey, guys, so mine was going to be Terrence Shannon. That was awful. But mine is, I saw something the other day. It was Mac McClung, who, of course, just won the slam dunk contest for the third year in a row. A video has been posted of him at an amusement park, and he walks past a kid that is wearing his 76ers jersey. It's a Mac McClung Sixers jersey, so he says, hey, I like that jersey. And the little kid just looks at him, says, thanks, and keeps walking, not knowing that's the guy he just met who's wearing his jersey. And so Matt McClung's like kind of in disbelief, and he's like, hey, yo, go get that kid. It's like one of his friends. So they get the kid, and he's like, hey, I'm the person whose jersey you're wearing. And he ends up taking a picture with him. His mom's like, oh, this is so cool. Signs the jersey. But, yeah, the kid didn't even know who just said hi to him, and he's like wearing his jersey. So that's my oh no.
That's pretty bad.
That's pretty good. That's a good submission. McClung, an unassuming guy. You would not look at him and think, oh, yeah, three-time dunk contest winner.
It's like Kyle Phillips having to convince people that we're at Titans training camp that no, I actually do play for the team. I'm not a water boy.
I remember when he was a transfer out of, I believe, Texas Tech. Tennessee was trying to get in on him.
Let's go to Tiffany.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, when LeBron showed up and he wasn't even prepared to play the game or anything. And, everybody else was like, had a lot to say about it, but I was like, oh no.
I appreciate the call, Tiffany. I'm unfamiliar with, did LeBron intend to play in the All-Star game and just decided
He pulled
not?
out pretty last minute.
Okay.
But still showed up.
Yeah. Late show. Dalton Connect made the semifinals of the weird tournament they did.
I didn't watch any of this.
The Rising Stars team had to go up against like Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Victor Wembanyama. Like it was like the Avengers versus the Rising Stars.
Tim will be our last submission. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Buck, what's going on, man?
What you got?
Hey, I wanted to do an oh-no on Lucas for dogging Jackson earlier today about not being able to pronounce the players' names. When he's been mispronouncing Chambers his entire life.
That's correct. And dispute. He says dispute weird. It's a great submission, Tim. Honestly, Tim.
I throw stones from glass houses, Tim.
That's right.
Tim might be my leader in the clubhouse.
Look, Tim, it was a good submission, but did Jordan drop? No, Jordan's still there. The Philadelphia mayor.
Yeah, it's Jordan.
I mean,
it's Jordan. Congratulations.
But I need vindication.
You need vindication?
Probably.
You can get it next.
It is 11:02. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. Starting today through March 4th, NFL teams can designate franchise or transition tags to their players. Some reports out of Cincinnati have indicated the Bengals could choose to franchise tag wide receiver T. Higgins for the second consecutive season. Meanwhile, Nashville Soccer Club officially announced a new signing this morning of attacking midfielder Ahmed Kazem this morning from the Swedish club Elfsborg. Kazem, a Swedish international. Nashville kicks off the 2025 season Saturday night against New England at Geodis Park. International hockey, Team USA fell to Sweden last night 2-1 in the Four Nations face-off. Preds forward Gus Nyquist had the tying goal for Sweden. The U.S. had already qualified for the Four Nations face-off championship. That'll be played Thursday against Canada. But star Brady Tkachuk left the game injured last night. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Now, when you talk about free agent acquisitions, because that's the thing that's most in front of us at this point in time, you have to first know definitively who's available to be acquired out on the open market. That's the problem with the lists of prospective free agents prior to today. Now, what makes today a significant milestone in that process? Well, like Lucas just said, teams can officially start to designate tagged players, franchise tag, transition tag, and things of the like that can let them assume a little more roster control over players who are pending free agents. It can help inform what the marketplace ultimately looks like and then give you a more definitive answer on who is actually available. One such player that Titans fans have been lusting after for how many off seasons now? 3? Since T. Higgins first gave some level of interest in not being with the Bengals anymore?
I seem to remember some sort of Instagram interaction between he and DeAndre Hopkins. I can't remember if that was last offseason or the one before that when D-Hop had signed. But yeah, no doubt that Tennessee connection will always keep him in the minds of Titans fans, especially the Vol Titans fans who missed out on T. Higgins during his recruitment as a 5-star out of Oak Ridge.
The reporting right now, and this is courtesy of Russ Heltman at Sports Illustrated, the Bengals plan to pursue new contracts for T. Higgins, Trey Hendrickson, and Jamar Chase. Now, that's a significant lift, and 3 players who are currently without contracts. But in the article, it is citing Jeremy Fowler's report on T. Higgins likely to be tagged.
What Fowler says is that a team source tells him they believe the Bengals will use the franchise tag on Higgins if no long-term deal is reached by the March 4th tag deadline in order to have time to get a deal done. The quote is, "Can't let him walk."
So that immediately alters your plans, theoretically, for Titans free agency to some extent, because there are plenty of people who would have said, yes, T. Higgins and Calvin Ridley, that's as good a wide receiver combo as you could possibly hope to have at this point in time, 2 proven commodities. Even if the Calvin Ridley experience isn't totally ideal, it becomes a lot easier if you've got a legitimate option on the other side of him who the coaching staff has familiarity with. It's a more souped-up version of the Tyler Boyd proposition. He's coming in here. He's going to help get the offense off the ground. He's going to help bring other players along in the process. And with the bonus of he's younger, he's more able-bodied at this point in his career. Yeah, he's going to be more expensive, but it's a multi-year deal that you would be pursuing at that point and can help get this thing off to a faster start than it might otherwise be able to have. Now that's no longer on the table.
Higgins, well, reportedly, Higgins would be the higher paid player in that scenario, right, compared to Calvin Ridley.
T. Higgins would cost more on an average annual basis than would Calvin Ridley. Yeah. Yes.
Even
for
on
reference, Calvin Ridley's deal was 4 years, $92 million. Yeah. Last year, his cap hit was not bad last year. It spikes this year.
Even on the franchise tag, Higgins would be making more in 2025. The salary, $26.17 million in 2025 if they do end up tagging him. The SI report is that Cincinnati plans to put the non-exclusive tag on him. So that would give them until July 15th to negotiate a long-term deal. And if no deal is reached, he would play on that salary of just over $26 million for 2025. He was on the franchise tag of $21.8 million last year, and a second tag triggers a 20% increase of the previous payout, which I don't think I knew that before. But there's also the possibility of a tag and trade, right? Obviously, he wants a long-term deal, and in that scenario, the tag and trade would mean he's going somewhere that he expects to sign a long-term contract.
L'Jarius Sneed was tagged last year by the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, the Titans tagged Derrick Henry all those years ago and then got a deal done. So they can figure this out. But again, the Bengals, not necessarily a franchise that is known for keeping their star players, especially when they have this many on the books.
JD on YouTube, where you can interact with the show, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, says of Calvin Ridley is paid like a number one wide receiver.
Not necessarily.
Not even close. Not even remotely close.
Maybe 10 years ago.
Calvin Ridley, right now, let me just forgive me while I count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. If you took on an average annual basis of the contracts that are currently out there, just of the wide receivers, Calvin Ridley would be the 17th highest paid wide receiver in the sport. Justin Jefferson, the names above him right now, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Ayuk, Waddle, Devontae Adams, DJ Moore. Cooper Kupp is currently slated to make more on his current contract with the Rams.
And they want to trade him, according to Cooper Kupp.
Devontae Smith, Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, Michael Pittman Jr., Terry McLaurin, and then Calvin Ridley.
Yeah. Wow.
He's paid at the top of tier 2. He is not paid like a number one wide receiver. Wide receiver ones on this list, Jalen Waddle is not a wide receiver one, right? He's a complimentary piece.
Oh, yeah, to Tyreek Hill.
So let me just cut it off there at Waddle and make it the top 6 players. Right now, the going rate for a number one wide receiver is an average annual salary of $30 million. Calvin Ridley is making 23.
Yeah. I mean, Ridley is the Titans wide receiver one, but yes.
He is by default, but what the commenter on YouTube is saying is incorrect. He is paid at the top of tier 2.
Yeah, but it's not even close to top of market.
Right. T. Higgins, fair to expect, would be more in that range. Like Jalen Waddle is making 28.2.
More than Calvin Ridley.
More than Calvin Ridley. That's the number 2 wide receiver, though. Well, we'll see what happens with Tyreek Hill this offseason, because all of a sudden Waddle might be the number 1.
Well, have you seen what he was saying during Super Bowl
Tyreek Hill
week?
No,
he was kind of walking back some of those comments.
Basically, no, I love South Florida. Don't send me to. I don't know.
Well, he apologized
somewhere.
Yeah, he apologized for basically saying I want out at the end of the season.
Dylan LaRocca on YouTube says, if you're top 32, you're paid as a number 1, and he's 17. No, that's not. That math does not math. That's not correct. But I understand what you're trying to do there.
Apparently, Tyreek Hill said, this was with Kay Adams during Super Bowl week, that his mom called him immediately after his I'm out comments. And she said, quote, baby boy, we don't handle our situations like that. So he said he does regret what he said after the game.
Moms are always right.
So
unless whose mom stole something off of the porch of somebody of their neighbors in an apartment.
Rasheed Rice?
Yes.
Was
Yeah.
it Rasheed Rice?
Rasheed Rice,
Okay.
yeah.
In that case, moms are not always correct.
But
that mom needs a reevaluation as far as her judgment.
But no, as part of that interview, Tyreek Hill said he's taking full accountability for what he said. He's going to come back next year, and he wants to stay with the Dolphins.
Okay. So, T. Higgins is an interesting piece of this. Nothing's official until pen is on paper. So, you don't have to definitively rule T. Higgins out, but right now, things are trending in the direction of T. Higgins not being an available option, which further complicates the Titans' roster construction conundrum, we'll say. Only so many places that you can address it. finite amount of resources, certainly more finite amount of resources this year than you had last year at your disposal, specific to the salary cap. So how can you go about putting together the best version of the 2025 roster? I think a lot of people would have liked to include T. Higgins in their best version of a 2025 Titans roster. There's nothing to say right now on February the 18th that they cannot. But it seems like T. Higgins is more likely to be a Cincinnati Bengal than play elsewhere in future seasons. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. What would your best strategy for the Titans be specific to wide receivers? Would you prefer them to explore the free agent market and add another experienced vet to supplement what they're losing? Would you prefer them to retain somebody like Nick Westbrook-Akina? Maybe it costs you a little more this time around than it has the last 2 years where he's making less than $2 million in salary year over year. Is that a fine?
Where did that come from?
My laptop.
Oh, that was you?
That was me.
Yeah, you have to read the notification.
Yeah, you have to read the notice.
Rules are rules.
My
It's very
Nashville
private and personal.
My Nashville electric service payment is due today.
Oh, that's not interesting.
Pay your electric bill.
Okay, I'll pay my electric bill today. But what would your preferred wide receiver approach be? Draft, retain, because in theory you do have a piece to retain here, or sign an outside free agent?
All the above.
I mean, yeah, at this point right now. We can get into that coming up next. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Friends, if you're new to Nashville or you've been here a long time, odds are you've got a clean out project that the missus would very much like to see done by the spring. The most reliable folks I know that can help you are my friends over at J&J Services. For over 20 years, J&J Services have been providing dumpsters for local businesses, construction sites, home cleanouts, and demolitions. They provide commercial dumpster service for your favorite restaurants and convenience stores. They provide roll-off dumpster services for everyone from 60-story high-rises to your neighbor's farm. J&J Services can offer trash compactors to make those large loads a little bit smaller. They can even supply you with porta potties for your special event. For the safest, most reliable service that you can get in Middle Tennessee, call them for a free quote at 615-599-7778. That's 599-7778. JNJServices.com, JNJServices.com, where they always keep it trashy.
It's time for headlines with Lucas Panzika.
If the two of you are going to conspire to drag that thing out longer every time we do a headline segment, perhaps don't speak into the wrong microphone as you're planning to bother me.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He literally got in my ear and said, "What do you want me to do?"
Dang it.
And I didn't acknowledge it because to acknowledge the two of you and your stupidity would be a wasted proposition.
Okay. No, here's my perspective. I did not know what he was asking me to do.
Yeah, so you said not to him, you said to me.
No, I said it to both of you. I said it to both of you, and I said, "What do you want me to do?"
This
could have been a show issue.
Swimmingly.
Get out of my ear.
As we know, today is the beginning of the window for NFL teams to designate franchise or transition players within their franchise. That deadline is March 4th. Adam Schefter tweeting this morning, it's expected to be a quiet tag cycle with minimal tag options. I add parenthetically, but significant ones. Kind of the first domino of a lot of these markets can begin with what happens here with the franchise tag. The players that Schefter mentions, Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins, who we've obviously talked about, Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold, or Vikings cornerback Byron Murphy Jr., as well as Chiefs guard Trey Smith.
I mean, it's not, I get what he's saying about quiet. Those aren't necessarily like huge profile players, but it's a bunch of different players that are intriguing locally for a couple of different reasons, because you're talking about a wide receiver who Titans fans have expressed interest in, a quarterback who some percentage of Titans fans have at some point expressed an interest in Sam Darnold.
No matter what, if you're interested in him or not, what happens with Sam Darnold has a direct impact on what the Titans' options will be in regards to the quarterback position this year.
Trey Smith and Javon Holland, Titans need a safety. Like, unless you're just going to bring Quandre Diggs back for another year and call it done, I still think that they need to draft a safety because they've still been chasing this Kevin Byard replacement, and maybe it's a failing proposition to even phrase it that way because you can't be tough to replace Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard was a good player for a long, long time here in Tennessee, but I can't express enough that there are needs everywhere on this roster, even the positions that you consider less important or that haven't come necessarily to the top of mind, less sexy than quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line. So, of those players, Darnold is the most impactful. Like, Darnold has the most ripple effect on not just, what the Titans can potentially do for us here locally, but league-wide. It's the best available free agent quarterback, and I would include Aaron Rodgers in that conversation. Sam Darnold is at a better point in his career than is Aaron Rodgers, even if one player has accomplished, obviously, miles more than the other. He's 41, Aaron Rodgers. Sam Darnold is probably the most intriguing contract decision in the NFL this year. Whether it be a tag, whether it be a long-term extension, or I guess a long-term contract, whether Minnesota decides to keep him in-house, it is probably the most interesting contract of the NFL offseason because of all the different things that it can impact. Would Sam Darnold staying in Minnesota be more a statement on Sam Darnold or be more a statement on J.J. McCarthy? Because to me, it's the latter.
Yeah, it's all about, do the Vikings believe they can reach their ceiling with Sam Darnold as their quarterback? Because no matter how much you like J.J. McCarthy, it's a big risk to cut loose the guy that just led you to 14 wins for the first time since Randy Moss was a rookie, for a rookie who's coming off a year where he didn't play a snap, was injured, that we know nothing about when the lights come on in an NFL regular season game. Big risk. You got to really love J.J. McCarthy. So if the Vikings believe that they have gotten everything they can get out of Sam Darnold, then it makes sense. It makes sense to, instead of overcommit to a guy that you don't believe can lead you to a Super Bowl while you're in this window, go with the first-round pick. but that boils down to their opinion of Sam Darnold.
And they would know better than most.
Absolutely. So how much of that just sputtering at the end of the year had to do with Darnold's performance? I think we act like the Vikings had a top-tier offensive line. I don't think that was necessarily the case. I mean, they obviously had injuries. Darisaw goes down. He loses his left tackle.
When they had Christian Darisaw, it was, I would probably put it in the top 12 units, which is good enough.
When things were bad at the end against the Lions in the regular season finale and against the Rams in the playoffs, their offensive line situation was not in that great of a spot. So...
Well, yeah, because ironically enough, the Darisaw injury happened during the regular season game against the Rams, and they ragdolled Darnold in that game too. It's a really expensive decision that they have to make because the tag right now is $40 million. We would assume. I mean, I don't know at what point is Sam Darnold, if he hits free agency, going to make $55 million a year?
I don't think so.
Why not?
I mean, I think it would be
to me, honest to God,
below.
Lucas, he has accomplished more than Trevor Lawrence.
He has accomplished more than Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence won a playoff game.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence has the playoff win.
The Chargers lost a playoff game. I don't know if the Jags get full
Darnold was
credit.
better in the regular season last year than any regular season for Lawrence, but he does have that playoff win. I've always thought about it like Darnold will be kind of a slight tier below those Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson type of contracts. But yeah, the market is the market.
Okay, but think about who you just put Trevor Lawrence in the same conversation with.
No, it's fair.
And I know he's a number 1 overall pick, but this isn't, what is he, a number 3, a number 4 overall pick?
Yeah, but I do think it's different. He's been recycled through a few different franchises. He's had multiple franchises part ways with him, say, I'm good on Sam Darnold. He is a reclamation project. Lawrence is the number 1 overall pick with the franchise that drafted him number 1 overall to be their franchise quarterback. But I get what you're saying. I guess it wouldn't be this blindsiding shock.
But the floor is $40 million.
But
that's the tag.
I'd be a little surprised if Darnold sat there with 55 AAV.
He's not going to make
contract.
less than 40.
I agree with
on
that.
On an average annual basis.
For sure.
It's a really difficult thing to kind of wrap your head around. I don't want to get caught up on just these headlines, but these are the most consequential headlines for today. Honestly, after I know Trey Smith is a great story. I would not expect him to be, it'd be $25 million for them to tag him. Mm-hmm. So obviously that's not viable for Kansas City, who has currently $5 million to work with an available 2025 cap. Trey Smith is going to be an interesting negotiation, I think, because the Chiefs should want to keep him. The more that I think about a $20+ million guard, the less interested I am in that, even though I understand, like, how much better is he than the next tier of guard would be my argument.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with Bill Callahan as your coach. I mean, what can you get? Trey Smith's a really good player, but what can you get out of a $7 to $8 to $9 million player a year?
That's what I'm saying.
Guard versus a 20+, and no matter how good of a person and football player Trey Smith is.
And that matters. That matters.
For sure. And he'd be coming back home. It checks a lot of boxes.
That there's a lot of reasons it does make sense. The biggest reason it doesn't is because $20+ million.
Yeah. The Las Vegas Raiders have fired assistant GM Champ Kelly. This is per ESPN. He worked under Titans assistant general manager Dave Ziegler when Ziegler was the GM in Vegas. Kelly was the interim general manager. After they fired Ziegler, he stayed and worked under Tom Telesco, who only had a year in Vegas before he was fired. And the Raiders let him go. In more interesting GM news, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. 5 finalists for the Jags GM job. Ian Cunningham, James Gladstone, John Eric Sullivan, Josh Williams, and do you know how to say Ethan Waugh's name?
I don't.
Waugh.
Waugh feels safe.
Yeah, it feels.
But so did
he's the assistant
Tyler
GM.
Show when it's really Shuck.
He has been the assistant GM under Trent Baalke in Jacksonville, so he would be an in-house promotion. John Robinson not going to get the job.
Didn't make the cut.
That's right. The Jags going to start this next round of interviews tomorrow. Combine starts next week. So 2 of those 5
that
candidates.
That will never not be funny.
I know.
The fact that the Jags are still running around like a chicken with its head cut off.
2 of those 5 candidates interviewed here with Ian Cunningham and John Eric Sullivan.
The John Eric Sullivan thing is something, and I don't have much detail to get into specifics, but I don't think I don't think the vibes between John Eric Sullivan and Chad Brinker for what there was maybe a perception as to who would be the favorite for the Titans job and how much the prior relationship with Brinker would impact John Eric Sullivan, not just John Eric Sullivan, but also people with the Packers who are planning to come to Tennessee with John Eric Sullivan. I just wonder generally what level of interest, beyond it's a first-time general manager opportunity and you want to take an opportunity there, if there might be some bad blood if John Eric Sullivan landed with the Jags, between the Jags and the Titans, beyond, AFC South rivalries. The more interesting thing to me, because right now it's just a list of names, the more interesting thing to me is John Robinson. Is he ever going to work as a general manager? He can get a job in a front office, although he doesn't, he hasn't latched on anywhere yet. The thing that's interesting, and I know Ramon has brought this up, is that he's no longer on the Titans payroll after this year. So that's likely why he's getting back into the cycle right now. But I don't know if John's body of work at the end here in Tennessee doesn't keep him from getting another general manager opportunity when that specific role very rarely has retreads.
Is there a single active general manager in the NFL that has been a GM at another stop before?
An active NFL general manager that has been an NFL GM before?
I can't think of one, personally.
Telesco was the only other one, and that was a weird thing, and it only lasted a year in Vegas. Mm-hmm. So I don't think so off the top of my head. But I don't know that definitively.
Yeah, we'd have to go back and double check that. But I also don't believe that's the case.
What else you got?
We can check. Ravens legal trouble.
Oh, yeah, I saw this.
So offensive lineman, before we get to the Justin Tucker developments.
Go ahead, Bert. Cape up for your team back there. I see you lurking around.
Offensive lineman.
Must have been because I brought food in.
Oh, thank you, Bert. Bert, as you tried to insult him and hurl barbs at him, has helped the show.
Wait, what?
Pulling up some information. So previously, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, according to Google, previously held a general manager role?
I don't think that's right.
We'll see. Sometimes Google's AI answers don't. He was the VP of football ops with the Browns beforehand. Then before that, the director of football research and development with the Niners. So, Vikings, that is his first GM job. We'll see if, and more messaging
you have to read
from
that
Bert
one
on
too.
the screen. No, I'm not going to read that one. Ravens guard Ben Cleveland has been cited for DUI Wednesday, driving in Georgia. But, of course, the bigger news out of Baltimore, 7 more women have accused Ravens kicker Justin Tucker of engaging in sexually inappropriate misconduct at high-end spas. The Baltimore Banner reported Sunday. The Baltimore Banner is the outlet that initially reported the first allegations against Tucker. This increases the total to 16 therapists from 8 spas making allegations of inappropriate behavior by the Ravens kicker. All the incidents reportedly occurred during sessions between the years 2012 and 2016, his first 5 seasons in the NFL. Roger Goodell addressed the allegations against Tucker during Super Bowl week. He said, quote, "They are obviously serious issues, and he is taking that seriously as we are." Tucker and his representation have called the allegations, quote, "unequivocally false." Ravens have not really spoken on this publicly, but more allegations coming down on the Ravens kicker.
What's up?
Didn't you say Bert incoming in my ear?
One moment.
He's plugging up his headphones.
Seamless transition.
I have thoughts on this.
You ready, buddy?
Okay, so on the Tucker stuff, at the risk of being labeled a homer, I would like to say that I would be hesitant.
What are you about to do?
No, I would just say that in any other case, I would be hesitant to label someone as such without evidence. All we have are allegations, and we've seen this come to a head with similar stories in the Duke lacrosse story, in the former punter from whatever the hell his name was.
Ariza.
Yeah, Ariza.
And the situation with this happened 12 years ago. So we're never going to get any tangible evidence for or against his case. So I'm against running someone's name through the mud on allegations. We've already labeled this guy a creep without any proof. All we have are allegations, and the statute of limitations have passed, so this would have to go to civil court. So now Justin would have to have evidence that does not exist to prove his innocence in civil court to sue them for libel. So we will never get a finality to this. We'll never be able to be like, yep, there's video, yep, there's this. The only piece of evidence the Baltimore Sun, outside of allegations, has been able to report, which is the Baltimore Sun's job, right? Report on these allegations.
The
banner. Whichever one it is. The only piece of evidence they've been able to support was a dated piece of paper of the date that a woman said, I told Justin Tucker to not come back to my spa, which, who knows? It is a piece of paper with a date on it. So it is tough for me when it's really easy to come out and say, this guy's a creep. Look what this guy did. And there's no proof. There are allegations.
So let me start here, because on the surface, and I would apply this to men and women because there are instances where this happens to men too, I'm more often than not am going to take the approach of, yes, I'm going to believe that there is something there when these allegations come to light, whether it's a female accuser, whether it's a male accuser. I do get what you're saying about allegations and this specific case. The difference to me, because I've thought about this a lot, because the Watson thing, we talked about Deshaun Watson for a year, but it was ongoing. These were much more recent situations. To Bert's point, just because the statute of limitations has passed doesn't mean that the conversation is less relevant, but it does make the burden of proof significantly harder than it was with Watson. I get what you're saying about, it's like, you remember when Deshaun Jackson called Chip Kelly a racist?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think even a more recent example is the Richie Incognito case, where all of this things got reported, and Jonathan Martin was lying the entire time, and no one gets a resolution about it until 13 years later. I feel like we live in the instant gratification era where something has to happen now, and you just jump out. And all this to say, if he's a creep, then cut him. If he's a piece of crap, then cut him. I'm all for that. Yeah, but that's not how
NFL teams work. You know that.
But it's also crappy in the way that we work now, that no one lets the legal system do what they're supposed to do. We just say someone's guilty out front. It's like, okay, now prove your innocence. That's what I have a problem with.
I get that, because I went through that with the Watson, the first Watson allegations that came out. Was that our first year on the air? We were definitely in the old studio.
Yeah, was that 2021 season the first that Watson did not play?
In the lead up to it, because that I remember going full bore at Deshaun Watson, and then we got a caller that backed me off a little bit and said, you are talking about these things definitively before you have allowed a degree of the legal process to play out, which I thought was fair feedback. Now I go about these things with a heightened sensitivity. Obviously, I think, Bert, the blind spot to point out there is you're a Ravens fan, and I understand that you take that into consideration as well, but that's something that people are going to bring up as to specific to this case. If these things were easy, the legal system would have an easier time resolving them. The NFL wading into these waters is always a nightmare, because even our legal system does not have a foolproof way to resolve issues like this. I'm going to continue to call them allegations. I'm going to discuss the nature of the allegations and how bad the nature of the allegations are, regardless of the timetable in which they were executed. The time period, to me here, how long ago it was, doesn't matter to me, other than the statute of limitations is an applicable legal part of the conversation. If these things happened, I don't care how long ago they happened, is my point.
Well, it has become a significantly more complex situation, with 7 more women, increasing the total to 16 therapists from 8 spas. I mean, the Watson numbers got up to, 24 accusers? It was more than that?
Close. It was close to 30. Yeah, 30 people publicly accusing him. of wrongdoing here.
So he could be subject to discipline under the NFL's personal conduct policy. We'll see how the legal system plays out, but it has gotten significantly more complex.
I will tell you, Bart, the one thing that's working against you here is the volume of accusers. Once it starts to trickle into, once it starts to get into, really 5 or more here to me, that argument carries less validity. Is that fair?
I'm going to be reamed either way. It really doesn't matter. I'm just
trying to have a reasonable argument.
I would defend any player who is going through this because either way, I just think that we should discuss these things about happenstance in a better quantification than just saying, "Yep, he's guilty." You know what I mean?
Oh, sure. No, I'm with you on that. There's too many examples of it, but we're talking about a specific instance with a specific number of accusers now. We're not talking generally. We're talking about this player, which I think is kind of, these things are never easy to talk about. We'll call Dan Lust if we need legal expertise. We should call Lust, honestly, on this. And I know it's not a quarterback, and I know he's not got a fully guaranteed contract, so it makes it less sexy than the details, less sexy of the Justin Tucker allegations than it was Deshaun Watson. Less compelling is probably the way that I should put it. But it's a tough thing to work through. Anyway, 615-737-1045 is the number. ESPN has a list of best free agent fits. The Titans only have 2 out of the top 50. We'll tell you whom coming up next.
Coming up on noon, that means lunchtime, and that should mean for you, Hattie B's. The best hot chicken in the world. Visit any one of their locations, the factory at Franklin, Lower Broadway, Melrose, Midtown, Nashville West, even the Nashville Airport. When you're flying in and out of town, a family-run restaurant that serves up your favorite Southern food in authentic Nashville hot chicken. Hand-breaded, cooked to order, add your spice level, hot or not, everything in between, and pick your favorite side. You know they're the best in town. Southern greens, the pimento mac and cheese, my personal favorite. Maybe some fried pickles with that drinking buddy beer cheese to dip them into. Top it off with some banana pudding or peach cobbler. By the way, you download the Hattie B's app today. You can order for pickup through the app. Skip the line, walk in, get your Hattie B's famous hot chicken, head back to the office. You can also order for delivery. And when you download the app, you get a free dessert just by doing so. Go to Hattie B's today.
Best movie soundtrack ever. I refuse to hear any other submissions. I will argue with you about Justin Tucker and Deshaun Watson. I will hear no arguments that the Blues Brothers soundtrack is the best single movie soundtrack ever produced.
Oh, it's up there.
You look like you had a submission.
Oh, no. I'm just saying it's up there.
Okay, very good.
Jimmy Fallon did a great rendition of that on the SNL Homecoming concert Friday. But yes, no. Love the Blues Brothers. It's about time I gave that a rewatch.
I feel like I'm probably good for one watch a year. It's my favorite movie. It never gets old.
Yeah. Carrie Fisher. I mean, underrated Carrie Fisher role. The angry girlfriend chasing after John Belushi's character the entire movie.
Curtis says, the Goofy movie. Travis Dukes on YouTube says, Batman in 1989. Prince did the whole thing? Oh, I didn't know that.
Wait, which Batman movie?
The 1989 Batman movie?
That's with Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, the Michael Keaton Batman.
Michael Keaton.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't know Prince did that soundtrack.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he's just submitted something in the chat that I don't know if it's factually accurate.
I've seen that movie
But if
multiple
Prince
times.
did the entire soundtrack, then he may have an argument. I'd still argue that the Blues Brothers has the best movie soundtrack. Amar says, how can you say that with Tarzan on the table? All right, this is going to break out into a sports talk radio
Phil
debate.
Phil Collins had an elite run with Disney in the 90s.
He did not have to go that hard on the Tarzan soundtrack, and he did for us.
So, there's no way to transition seamlessly into a list of potential free agents that are available. And again, these things are complicated by the fact that the franchise tag window opens today, and the franchise tag window could impact how many of these players who are scheduled to be unrestricted free agents actually end up hitting free agency. If I gave you a list of the top free agents in football this year, the top 50 free agents in football this year, and asked you how many made sense for the Titans, how many would you say?
You said a list of how many exactly?
50 is the list.
I would have guessed 2 or 3.
Out of 50?
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about for the entire NFL.
Yep. 32 teams.
And a list by a national
50
outlet.
Players. So there are 2 that, and again, this is not the end-all be-all, but it's just a list where people have assigned fit and available players. The 27th best free agent, according to ESPN, is Raiders pass rusher, or at least, expected to be former Raiders pass rusher, Malcolm Kuntz. Now, I know that's not the Raiders pass rusher that you're interested in. You want a Max Crosby on the Tennessee Titans next year, and in discussion for the number 1 overall pick, perhaps that's viable. But of guys that are pending unrestricted free agents right now, they have the 27th best free agent. He's listed as the 27th best free agent between Drew Dahlem, the center, and Cameron Bynum, the safety. Malcolm Kuntz is who they say makes the most sense for the Titans out of available free agent pass rushers. And the blurb, Titans defensive coordinator Denard Wilson needs an impact edge rusher to complement his 2 interior defenders in Jeff Simmons and Devondre Sweat. A knee injury in early September erased last season for Kuntz before it started, but he posted 8 sacks and 29 pressures in 2023. If the knee checks out, Kuntz would have upside in Wilson's system as a 3-down defender with pass rush chops.
Spotrac projects him to command about a 2-year deal worth $20 million annually.
So would you rather spend $20 million a year on a guard or a pass rusher?
A pass rusher that you hope is an ascending player in the NFL versus a guard that you know to be one of the best guards in the NFL at the moment.
It's kind of like the John Robinson proposition. How much risk are you willing to take on a player that's coming off an injury? Because the knee injury knocked him out for the entire season. And, guys recover from knee injuries and go on to be successful all the time, and sometimes it takes them a little longer. For example, they did this. The deal was much bigger. It was a top-of-market contract for Bud Dupree. But Bud Dupree was coming off an ACL tear. ACL tears are routine. Bud missed all kind of time throughout the course of that first year. Then the second year, I've never seen a player get 2 hip pointer injuries on either hip ever in my life. I'm sure it's happened before, but it happened to Bud Dupree. Bud started missing time for injuries that were unrelated to his ACL recovery and then went on to be, a solid player. I think Bud Dupree might have played in every game for the Chargers this year and was pretty decent for the Falcons not too long ago.
Yeah.
So
he had 6 sacks this past season, and he did play in all 17 games. He's played in every game since he left Tennessee.
It's crazy.
He's not. Well, he missed 1 game last season, in 2023 with the Falcons. So he's missed 1 game since he left the Titans.
So the question is, do you want to be the team that takes the $20 million a year risk on a pass rusher coming off a knee injury that cost him all of last season? That's a tougher sell, even if it does satisfy a need. The other player on here out of the top 50 is at 35. They have listed Kevin Zeitler, the guard, who obviously fits a need. They need to rebuild the right side of their offensive line. If you ask me, would I rather have Dylan Radins or Kevin Zeitler? I'd say Kevin Zeitler, and if you want to keep Radins, make him a reserve player. That's the kind of free agent approach. Like, to me, and I know that there's Titans fans who would disagree with this vehemently, or Vols fans who would disagree with this vehemently. Do you have Spot Track up?
I do.
Give me the projection on Kevin Zeitler, if you would. Because right now, Spot Track has, again, these are just projections, and typically the Spot Track projections tend to be low. I think they err on the side of caution there, just in terms of once we actually start to get into the real money, the real figures.
It has his projected market at right about $9 million on a 1-year deal.
So Trey Smith is projected at $19 million and change on Spot Track, and Kevin Zeitler is projected at $9 million. I would rather take the $9 million proposition.
Be 35 this season.
I get it, but on a non-premium position. So what's your goal with the right side of the offensive line? That's the question that we don't have the answer to based on how Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker and the rest of their respective staff feel about this. Are you just trying to find something to solidify it so you can draft a right tackle or put J.C. Latham over at right tackle and make him your right tackle of the future? If the left tackle market proves to be viable, that you can go out and bring in a starting caliber player that makes you comfortable enough moving J.C. over to the right? Or are you willing to spend one of 8 draft picks on a non-premium position in a draft that does have some players that can play along the interior of the offensive line? To me, I would rather them draft a tackle because that's more cost effective and pay the guard on a 1-year deal and figure out the guard situation after the fact. That's to me why Zeitler would be, and again, Vols fans and Titans fans are probably going to think I'm an idiot, but the Zeitler path, even if it's not the specific player, a player of that caliber for about the same ballpark price is more viable to me than Trey Smith at top of market. For a team like this.
He could very well be the highest paid guard in the NFL.
Trey Smith.
In 2025, unless they tag him.
I have very little doubt in my mind, unless there's some health concern that we don't know about. And obviously Trey Smith has come through the other side of that as far as the blood clots go. But unless there's something we don't know that would knock Trey Smith's value down, that player should be the highest paid player at his position this coming offseason. If I'm the Titans, that's a luxury spend to me, even if it is a critical need. You need a right side of the offensive line rebuild. Can you rebuild it? Can you patchwork some of it together while getting a long-term solution at one of the 2 positions, be it right guard or right tackle? The preference would be right tackle because that's the harder position to find. Coming up next, Cam Ward made a declaration, really as a warning for teams who might consider passing over him in the draft. We'll tell you what he said. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. Beginning today through March 4th, NFL teams can designate franchise or transition tags on their players. Some reports out of Cincinnati, including one by Sports Illustrated, stating that the Bengals plan to put the non-exclusive tag on wide receiver T. Higgins, who is set to become a free agent. This would give the Bengals and Higgins until July 15th to negotiate a long-term deal. If no deal is reached, he would play on a salary of $26.17 million for 2025. College baseball, Tennessee in action back home against UNC Asheville. First pitch has been moved up to 3:30 Central Time due to incoming weather in East Tennessee and across the state. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
So there's a lot of conversation around tangible abilities of athletes when we talk about evaluation of players, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, soccer, any of your favorite major sports. But the harder thing to quantify is how much do the intangibles actually matter? Now, we know that intelligence or intellect for the respective sport for a player matters. We know that personality, leadership skills, all of these things matter because if you have them, it's evident. If you don't, it's also evident.
Level of that dog versus level of that dudeness. These are all things NFL teams are taking into account throughout the pre-draft process and next week in Indianapolis. I imagine that's the primary measuring stick that they'll have on a whiteboard, a dog and dudeness scale for players to
on a whiteboard?
Yeah, I don't know how exactly you would do it.
Teams are just running around in the meetings, be like, point, like it's,
maybe
it's like one of those
graph.
when you go to the doctor, like, point to me on this scale of smiley faces how bad it hurts.
No, more of an evaluation after you sit down with the player, you get to know him a little bit, you press his football IQ, his personal stuff, all the questions you throw at a player in what is essentially a job interview. And then I imagine they spin around in their chairs and there's a big whiteboard. You know those bleep around and find out charts?
Mm-hmm. There's one in the green room.
One in the green room, yeah, line graph.
Yep.
I imagine there's one of those where the Y is that dog and the X is that dudeness. And you just figure out where Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders and all these guys land. Ward feels like that dog kind of guy.
Does he?
Yeah,
Got that dog in him.
I think so.
I thought that they were conducting these medical evaluations in Indianapolis just to perform MRIs and just find a pit bull in somebody's chest cavity and be like,
that's got nothing to do with it.
He's got it.
Sanders feels like more of a dudeness. Feel like he tilts more towards the dudeness scale.
Okay.
You want a healthy balance.
Since you're going to flesh out this terrible joke, go ahead and define to me what the differentiation between dog in them and dudeness, that dude, is to you. Give me a specific scientific delineation.
First of all, it's not a joke. It's an evaluation tool. It wasn't even coined by me. I can't take credit for this. David Ubben of The Athletic is the one who brought this to our attention, and I've been obsessed with it ever since.
So it's his fault.
We all know what that dog in a player is, right? We overuse it, to be quite honest. For example, David Ubben used it with us in terms of Nico Iamaleava. You wouldn't say he has that dog in him. You don't see Nico just getting up and screaming in people's faces and leading the team in that way, but he certainly has that dudeness about him. I mean, he's laid back, he's calm, cool, and collected. He kind of has that even-keeled demeanor.
So even keel, so temperament is dude,
right.
And what is dog then?
Having that dog in you is, okay, you know who has the perfect balance of it? Jaden Daniels.
You don't seem to know.
Jaden Daniels has the perfect balance. I think Nico could use a little more of that dog in him. I think Nico Iamaleava could stand to be more of a vocal leader on Tennessee's football team.
Oh, my God, I did.
Grabbing
you know how
the
many
reins
years
of this team
around
a little
Mariota
bit more.
I did?
That's a good example.
I did this for Marcus's entire career.
Marcus has a little more dudeness than dog. I think Will Levis is a lot more dog than dudeness. You want a healthy balance. I feel like Jaden Daniels has showed us a perfect balance. Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, These people.
Oh, yes, all the ones that are excellent at it.
Well, exactly.
Okay.
Don't you see where I'm getting at here?
No,
As an evaluation
I have no
tool?
idea what direction you're heading. I'm more confused about your ability to define these two things than I was at the start of this terrible, ill-informed analogy.
The question in this draft process is, which of these two quarterbacks has the best balance of dog versus dudeness? Because you got to have both. Steve McNair had both. The best quarterbacks in the NFL have both. You can't have too much of one and none of the other.
Okay, very good. So the question is, will Cam Ward's dogness or dudeness come back to bite whichever team would dare think about passing him over in the NFL draft?
Yes.
Did I do that transition correctly?
This is an example of dog, what we are about to talk about with Cam Ward.
I'm glad that we have that straightened out. So Cam Ward, unsure as to whether, well, at least I don't know if he's sure or not, but it's unclear right now as to whether he's going to throw at the combine, which is, of course, a part of the evaluation process. It's also the interview process and the medicals and everything else that players go through. But
also Sanders. We don't know if Sanders is going to throw.
We don't know if either of these top two quarterbacks or projected top two quarterbacks are going to throw at the combine next week. I'll be there. I'm going to talk to these quarterbacks. We'll bring back those conversations for you. It'll be a great time had by all. What Cam Ward is certain of, though, is that the team, if there is a team that passes over him, if Cam Ward essentially is not selected with the number 1 overall pick, he's going to live to make you regret it. Quote, you're either going to draft me or you're not. And this was, last night before the Davey O'Brien Award ceremony for the nation's top college quarterback. Quote, if you don't draft me, that's your fault. You've got to remember you're the same team that's got to play me for the rest of my career, and I'll remember that. Okay, that's fine. That is an interesting proposition. The question is, does the talent basically equate to what he's alleging, which is that every other team that passes over him will live to regret their decision in passing over him? Because, I mean, it's different in the first round than, for example, what's the most famous example of this? Amon-Ra St. Brown. With the list of players, how many players? It's like 13 or 14 wide receivers.
Yes, he has it memorized by heart, and it includes Des Fitzpatrick.
Titans legend.
Is he still in the league? I think
Steelers, right?
I think he's a practice squatter.
He's a practice squad. He's certainly squatting somewhere as far as the practice squad goes. Chargers.
Another one of the former Titans.
All right. How about that? So, Ann correctly says it's giving Amon-Ra St. Brown, because it is. That's different, though. That's a clearly talented player who several organizations passed over for whatever reasons they had for passing over Amon-Ra St. Brown, whether it was his size, his physical ability, whether they had seen enough to know about how much of the route tree he was going to be able to run as an NFL player, whatever it was. He got passed over. Des Fitzpatrick was a 4th-round pick.
Yep.
And then so
traded
was
up for him.
Yeah. God.
He wasn't even the best receiver on Louisville's team that year.
Oh, that was Tutu Atwell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He went earlier in the draft, though. He was not still around.
Yeah, and he's kind of
turned into
a nice player.
Honestly, I wouldn't hate if the Titans picked him up. Des Fitzpatrick, it's just made more visceral because we had somebody from the 33rd team on at the time. I think that was at the inception of the 33rd team as an outlet, who was projecting. It wasn't relative athletic score, but it was some level of athletic measurement that could help inform whether a player would be a hit or a bust. And this guy, I can't remember the guy's name that came on with us, Lucas. It was like the first year that we did the radio show, and this guy definitively said, yeah, the player most likely to bust out of any of these players that are being talked about is Louisville wide receiver Des Fitzpatrick. And then a week later, the Titans drafted him.
It was someone from the 33rd team.
That's what I just said.
Okay, so but
Tom Pelissero reports.
Thank you.
I mean, they had. There's not a better example of that. Not moments ago. I literally said at the inception of it as an outlet.
I was feeling validation reading the F&M Bank chat, leaning into the dog versus dudeness thing. But yeah, it was a very, very scientific. I mean, it was very analytical, the metric that they had to gauge the most bust-likely players.
I don't remember the exact level of metric, but this guy came on and definitively said, no, Des Fitzpatrick, that's a red flag player. And then the Titans drafted him, traded up to draft him, and, famously Amon-Ra St. Brown went on to be a wide receiver 1 for the Detroit Lions several picks later.
Did you mention that came from the 33rd team?
I don't think so.
I sure did. So, all that to say, is the conversation different in the first round than it is on day 3, where a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, there are players like that out there, and there's an easier conversation. Like Jarvis Brownlee. Jarvis Brownlee is somebody who came into the Titans with that same kind of energy. He was visibly distraught on the Zoom with us on draft night that there had been however many corners got drafted before him leading up to his selection in the 5th round. I remember him, maybe not exact phrasing, but I'll paraphrase here, him saying, yeah, I know, because I know a lot of those corners, and I know that those corners aren't better than me. And he ended up playing a remarkable amount of snaps for a rookie out of necessity, and he acquitted himself pretty well. Certainly well for a 5th-round rookie. I think it's a little less clear as to, like, Cam Ward can definitely make a team rue the day that they passed over Cam Ward. But I think it's a different conversation at the very top of the draft than it is somewhere where you're actively seeking value like day 3. And it's the heavier lift is in days 2 and 3 of the draft. The first round, I'm not going to say the first round's easy, because obviously you look at J-Rob's last 3 first rounds, and that was anything but. There was a lot of bad decision-making in there that would make, a lot of people push back on my notion that the first round is the easiest round to kind of get through. But you're doing a hell of a lot more work, a lot more legwork, a lot more research on the rest of these guys, and specifically once you get into day 3, than the rest of it. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Trey is up next.
What up, fellas? I thought it was funny about the dog and that dude, the grid you was talking about. I think Buck, you was slick hating on the joke. It was on the premise. I think it was a little funny, and I think he got a point though, because Sanders for sure has a little bit of both. Cam seems to be a lot of dog, and I think that's kind of relevant to the floor being where the floor is for Sanders is why I want to go with him anyway. But it also talks about the ceiling that Ward has in a certain type of way. So I think there's something you can get out of the conversation.
Thank you for the call, Trey.
I'm fending off. The phone is just blowing up from NFL front offices.
He literally
trying to trademark this dog versus dudeness idea.
Lucas pointed at me, made a fault. I'm sure the F&M Bank chat could see him motion to his ear just because it was one call in support of him making that terrible.
I didn't know it was in support of me. It could have been telling me I was an idiot for all I know. I just want our audience to have a voice. You are against that. I don't know why.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Speaking of the addressing of needs, what would you prefer the Titans go about addressing it through free agency versus the draft based on what the 2 areas of roster construction, their strengths and weaknesses are right now in 2025? We'll talk about it. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Don't trust your health to an online pharmacy if you're somebody who's seeking solutions for erectile dysfunction. If you feel like you're out of options, call the Tennessee Men's Clinic because they are the experts in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do. They have access to multiple protocols and options to treat ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. Because a lot of guys assume that if the pills stop working, they have no other options than, for example, irreversible surgery to treat ED. The sad reality is that if you go to a doctor to seek help for ED, those may be the only protocols that they have available for you. Do not go through irreversible surgery to get treatment before you've talked to the experts at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Their protocols are patient-centered and customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone, ED, treatments that increase size, stamina, and everything else in between. So schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown location, or call them 615-208-9090. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by the best hot chicken in the world. I heard Lucas erroneously say it's the best hot chicken in Nashville yesterday. Shame on you for not paying enough lip service to the greatest hot chicken in the world, Hattie B's Hot Chicken.
I feel like that should just be deduced. I mean, there couldn't possibly be hot chicken outside of Nashville better than anything in Nashville. So by being the best hot chicken in Nashville, by default, Hattie B's is the best in the world.
Okay, I'll take that.
Believe me, I've tried hot chicken in other places. It's terrible.
That sounds like a contractual violation.
in a past life.
It's like previous lovers. Oh, in a previous relationship.
Well, you always have to monitor the competition. And believe me, I feel good about where Hattie B's is at.
615-737-1045 is how you chime in before we talk about needs that the Titans have, but we're going to put them into buckets. We do this, this exercise in varying different ways, but at the core of it, it's still the same exercise. We have a list. It's a list of things that the Titans need on their roster. What we are going to do is assign them where we think they are best suited addressing those needs in free agency or via the draft. 615-737-1045 is the number first before we start that exercise. Dylan is up next.
Yeah, you guys were talking earlier about soundtracks, and you said the Blues Brothers was by far the best ever. And then looks like somebody sent a text in or informed you that Prince had been involved with Batman soundtrack. Well, it seemed like you kind of gave that a little credit. Why not just go with the most obvious, and that's Purple Rain as the best soundtrack, and Prince clearly did that one.
That's fair. I never saw the movie.
Oh, my.
Someone also submitted Saturday Night Fever.
I didn't see Saturday Night Fever.
You got to go see Saturday Night Fever. You're a Bee Gees. I think you're a Bee Gees guy, right?
Bangers.
Yeah. Saturday Night Fever. Absolutely up there in terms of movie soundtracks.
So he's wrong. Of course, it's still the Blues Brothers. Like that's the position that I will be the most extreme on in the history of the radio show. You will not tell me that there's a movie soundtrack anywhere else in the world. The world.
I don't know. It's a good argument to make that a movie with Prince is just by default one of the better soundtracks.
I don't know if we ever talked about this, and I don't want us to go down a rabbit hole because this is an easy rabbit hole to go down through. But like the Ezra Edelman, you know that name, the documentarian who put together the OJ documentary that won the Oscar. Yeah. So apparently he's been, once you make something that is that level of masterpiece, and it was excellent, the OJ documentary. I think it's the best sports related content I've ever seen. He had his choice of what he wanted, what his next project was going to be, and he decided that he was going to spend like the last 6 years putting the groundwork in for a Prince documentary. And apparently Prince came in, or Prince's estate came in at some point in the process and nixed it because he got too close to some of the problematic stuff that people might not have out there. OJ's not a polarizing. Well, he is, but like it's easy to hate OJ.
Did you just say OJ is not polarizing?
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like in the sense that
no, he never really prompted debate or at any point in his life.
Everybody can admit that OJ Simpson is a bad guy, right?
No, there are people.
Okay, now.
Yeah, no, I mean, there were a lot of things that he did over the years after even the case in the 90s.
Jeff Ross showing up at the Tom Brady roast in an OJ jersey from hell.
Oh, man. Yeah.
We can all assume that OJ Simpson in 2025 we can all consensus, bad guy.
But in the 90s, at that time point, he was probably the most polarizing figure in America.
Okay, that's fine. But when the thing came out on OJ, like nobody was still caping up for OJ, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm sure there were people.
There are probably a good amount of people in the world that hold Prince, a figure like Prince, up on a pedestal and assume that Prince can do no wrong and the music is forever and the music is excellent and all these different things. When I'm sure he's got some complications in his life, anybody on that scale will have some stuff throughout the course of their existence. What did he die from?
Didn't OJ have cancer?
No, Prince.
Oh, it was drug related.
Okay.
I believe.
So at some point, anyway, Ezra Edelman got too close to the problematic stuff with Prince, or what Prince's estate felt problematic. Spent 6 years putting together the documentary only to have the estate come in and nuke it.
Oh, Tyler suggesting Cars. Great soundtrack.
Somebody said
I guarantee you Buck's never seen Cars.
I've seen Cars. I saw the first one. I never saw any of the 17 that came after. It's like Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, I saw the first 2 that mattered, and then I didn't care about the rest of them.
I would have thought your parents would have only taken you to silent movies.
Or foreign films.
You know how that's my parents are the reason why I saw Blues Brothers when I was like 6. I saw Jurassic Park when I was 2, gave me nightmares forever, but I didn't really get like kids movies. I got movies, but at a very
6
young
is
age.
definitely early to be seeing Blues Brothers.
I was having to have somebody explain to me. It's like the first episode of Friends I remember watching in like 2nd grade, and then asking my mom what a condom was because somebody dropped one into Phoebe. What's Phoebe's last name?
Phoebe Boucher.
Phoebe Boucher's guitar case. Buffet.
Is it Buffet?
Buffet.
Yes,
Boucher.
Boucher is Bobby Boucher. That is from Waterboy.
Either way.
I've been a Friends. I've loved Friends. I'm ashamed of myself for making Phoebe a Bobby Boucher sister.
2nd grade me had to turn around to my mother and be like, "What's a condom?"
And she
explained it. 2nd grade. 615-737-1045. So, shall we go through this exercise? Titans needs for, oh God, now we're going to get a bunch of calls about the best movie soundtracks. We've immediately devolved into July sports talk radio programming. We're
Pandora
fight
only comes out of the box. Can't put her back in.
I know it. Is it a she? It's very sexist of you. I
think it's a mythology thing.
Okay. I think that we should go about this the way that we had planned before we got derailed by O.J. Simpson and Prince and all these other things that have cultural relevance still in 2025.
O.J. Simpson, never polarizing.
Not now. Everybody hates him. That's the thing, except for, the few times that I can admit that he made me laugh on Twitter. What is the biggest need on the Titans roster?
That is a loaded question, but I'm going to say quarterback.
Okay. I think that's probably the place that most people would start. So, quarterback, if I gave you the option to address it, one or the other, there's nothing here that precludes them from addressing it both ways. That's the wrinkle that the Titans have at their disposal with the number 1 overall pick currently. But if I made you pick this option for a starter, for a starting quarterback, not a guy that's going to sit and develop, not a backup, a future project like in the a la Quinn Ewers or Tyler Shuck or Jackson Dart, a starting quarterback, would you prefer the Titans in 2025 to address that via free agency or via the draft?
My personal opinion is via free agency.
So, right now, though, that option includes Sam Darnold and a bunch of dudes.
Yes.
Because it includes Rodgers.
There would need to be some developments.
Derek Carr is currently under contract in New Orleans. Kirk Cousins is currently under contract in Atlanta. Those are 2 significant dominoes that might affect the potential free agent market. Now, we're doing this exercise on February the 18th when both of those players are still under contract with their respective teams. So the free agent market looks a little less viable than it might otherwise look. So, but if we're looking at it pre these developments that need to happen, like basically the choice is between, because I'm taking Rodgers out of the equation. I don't want anything, if from a purely football standpoint, on the field, not from a coverage element, Aaron Rodgers is not an option to me. So basically, to me, it's a choice between today, Sam Darnold, and a draft pick.
There are other free agents available.
Mm-hmm.
I think you then get into the tier of, as you monitor the Rams and Stafford and the Saints and Carr, then what's the next tier? Is it Fields, Russell Wilson?
I don't think Fields is in the same category as Russell Wilson. I think that Russ is probably, if I was a team, me personally, again, it probably depends on the team, but if it was me personally, I would stack Fields ahead of Russ.
Well, and the Steelers are going to have an opportunity to bring either one back. They've said as much. One of those two likely will hit the open market. I mean, they're both technically going to be on the open market, but stands to reason one will be in Pittsburgh next year. Both have expressed desire to be in Pittsburgh next year.
And whichever member of the Rooney family is currently the controlling owner of the Steelers has said that he expects them to pursue one of the two players, but not both of them. So to me, I would put Fields, who still has the opportunity to be an ascending player, over Russ, who's clearly on the decline at this stage of his career. He's going to be, 36, 37 by the time next season starts?
Back half of the season was not good for Russell Wilson.
No, it petered out very quickly. So
he is 36. He'll be 37 in November, late November.
So who's in the Fields category? If that's the way that I'm going to tier them, like flyers, essentially. Flyers for players that Sam Darnold was previously. Is Fields the only one in that category this year? Like potential reclamation projects?
Yeah, players whose best could still be ahead of them, because we know that's not the case with Russell Wilson or with Jameis Winston and the like.
So to me, Fields is the only player right now that's an unrestricted free agent in that pool or in that bucket.
Yeah, I'm not willing. Is Zach Wilson in that bucket?
Yes.
Feel a lot.
Now there's more. Feel a great deal.
Feel a lot better about a flyer on Fields than Wilson.
But that's because Wilson didn't do anything. What did you see Zach Wilson have to do last year? Nothing, because Bo Nix played.
Yeah. Is Mac Jones in that bucket?
Yes.
At the age of 26.
Yes. All three of those players, that's the same draft class, right?
Wilson and Jones and Fields, yeah.
That's the same.
For all first-rounders.
They are all in the same bucket. Former first-rounders. Some you've seen play more recently than others. Some you've seen have success more recently than others. Hell, if you're a Titans fan and you watch Mac Jones, you're like, the guy that swept us? Yeah, ascending player.
And is Daniel Jones in that bucket?
Daniel Jones is in that bucket.
At the age of 27.
He's older. That's crazy that he's only 27.
27.7. I like how Spot Track does the decimals.
Those, I mean, it matters for the purposes of what we're talking about here. Those four players are all in the same category to me.
Yeah, he'll be 28 in May.
So to me, if we're going at this on February the 18th, before such time as Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins has anything happen to them, I'm with you. I would say free agency, because you have the Darnold option. You have the Rodgers option, which I don't believe to be an option. Rodgers and Russ, basically, in the same bucket there. And then you have the ascending, or not ascending, you have the potential for ascending players in Wilson, Fields. Who else did you say? Daniel Jones, and who's the fourth?
Mac Jones. You could also potentially throw Kirk Cousins in that Russell Wilson, Rodgers bucket if he becomes available.
Right. But I'm just saying players that are available to be had on February the 18th.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you that free agency would be the best place for this team to address the starting quarterback needs. If I'm my position with Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and I understand that players that get drafted number one overall almost never sit. But if you're going to draft them, because there's nothing to say that you can't sign one of these players and then draft Cam Ward or Shedeur number one overall, if that's how they choose to go about this. But I'd rather see them sit. Now, I think that it's far less likely that if the free agent quarterback option is a Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, that you're not drafting Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders to play right away, and that those players are more developmental.
I normally hate doing this history thing like we did with C.J. Stroud when he was coming out. Oh, Ohio State quarterbacks never have success in the NFL. Like that has anything to do with C.J. Stroud as a prospect. But I will say this. Can you tell me the last player that was selected number one overall that won a Super Bowl with the team that drafted him?
The last player that won a Super Bowl.
With the team that picked him at number one overall.
Oh, that's a good question. It's not like as far back as Peyton, is it?
Not a quarterback.
It's not a quarterback. Okay, go ahead.
It's an offensive lineman. Who's the last
is it Fisher?
Eric Fisher.
Eric Fisher.
Yeah. But if we're to talk about quarterbacks, it is Peyton. Peyton Manning is the last quarterback selected number 1 overall to win the Super Bowl with the team that drafted him.
That goes back to the comment that was made earlier to us about when in doubt, draft a quarterback. No. No. Because it's not a foolproof. There is no foolproof plan in the NFL draft process. There is no foolproof way to roster build.
Cam Newton got the closest.
And he lost.
Since then, he lost. And
so the corpse of Peyton Manning.
And those two are talking about Cam Newton, Peyton Manning. Special talents.
Different in ways that, Peyton Manning essentially came up with the way that NFL teams ran their offense for the 20 years that followed Peyton Manning, because he brought something that you've never had. I covered Derrick Henry for 8 years here. I've never seen a red zone weapon like Cam Newton. Never. Peak Cam Newton? Never. There's never been a more viable red zone threat than Cam Newton at the height of his powers.
He's the most individually dominant player I have seen in my lifetime at the college level.
At the college level,
yes,
for sure. But the fact that it translated to the pros made it crazy.
So that's who we're talking about. That is the category of quarterbacks that have either come close to or won a Super Bowl with the team that drafted them after being the number 1 pick. A Hall of Famer in Peyton Manning, one of the greatest of all time, and Cam Newton, who did things that we had never really seen before at the position at both the college and NFL levels. A national champion and Heisman winner, coming out, bona fide number 1 pick. And again, I don't like doing, just because it hasn't happened since then doesn't mean anything for Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. But
it can help inform. Because what's at the theme? What's the crux of that takeaway, though, Lucas? It's not in the NFL.
Burrow also came close. Not just Cam. Burrow came close.
NFL, there is no one player that is going to guarantee your best possible path to the Super Bowl. Not a quarterback, not a pass rusher, not a left tackle. It's all a part of the best possible team. Who has the best team at the end of the season? The healthiest team, the team with the most depth, the team with the most talent across the board. No one individual player, as you just saw, an individual player, a player who is no question a first ballot Hall of Famer at whatever point Patrick Mahomes' career is over and he decides that he wants to retire and get his gold jacket on the way out the door. Nobody's disputing that guy is an excellent player, and he was not nearly enough. He wasn't even close. Wasn't even close because the best possible team in the Super Bowl overwhelmed him. That's the thing that I think has to be in the back, not even at the back, at the forefront of every Titans fan's mind when thinking about this draft and the next draft and the next draft. It's not just about this draft. It's not just about this number 1 overall pick. If your organization is keenly aware of this is why they keep going back to that stated phrase of patience over panic, because they know it's a build. There is no team right now, or at least certainly not Tennessee, that's 1 player away from setting this thing over the top. You're not even remotely close to that. Build. I know it's going to take a lot longer, and I know you're not patient, or you shouldn't be patient, because it's been a lot of losing here in the last couple of years. But this is going to take some time if they're to do it correctly. And even then, even if they do it correctly, they still have to get lucky. Like to compete for a Super Bowl, think about this. This was brought up, I want to say on the Athletics NFL show that Robert Mays hosts. Do you remember what happened to the Philadelphia Eagles before they drafted Devontae Smith?
What happened to the Eagles?
Yeah, what they did.
Remind me.
They drafted Jalen Reagor in the first round.
That's right. Oh, there's plenty. You can go back, plenty of misses.
They had to make up for the fact that they drafted Jalen Reagor in the first round. Then they drafted Devontae Smith. Then they traded for A.J. Brown. And then they got back to the Super Bowl.
Who was, or what year was he? That was in 2020. You remember who their first round pick was the year before that?
Before Reagor?
Yeah. Dillard. Oh. Andre Dillard.
Howie Roseman has Andre Dillard and Jalen Reagor on his resume and still is a 2-time Super Bowl champion. Teams get it wrong. There has to be some level of trial and error. But you can't just throw your hands up in the air and say, no, this player now, because it's going to do the most right now. No, it doesn't. That's not how this works. Last call for phone calls if you got them. 615-737-1045 is the number. Jump in there. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Last call for phone calls if you got them. 615-737-1045 is the number. Thank God it's the end of the show because I've officially lost Lucas to soccer. What are you watching? That's not the radio show that we still have 15 more minutes of.
Again, no one derailing the show here but you.
No,
but,
you. You doing something that's not the 15 minutes left of our job that we have to do today.
There's simply an iPad up that happens to be playing some Champions League soccer with my AC Milan.
Was this up when the 33rd team thing happened?
Yes.
No, he was too busy reading his own praise in the chat.
Yes.
Which
No,
is
that
how he
is
got
what that was.
He's become very vain.
I'm going to work on
The more shows I am not here for and he has to do by himself, it's just, the transformation is near complete.
I am going to work on a dog versus dudeness line graph and trademark it and potentially peddle it to NFL teams like the S2 test.
Yeah. That worked out swimmingly for those guys.
Maybe I get someone that, knows their stuff analytically and can find a way to measure dog. If the guy from the 33rd team can find a way to analytically measure players most likely to be a bust.
He was so right.
Draft prospects, then surely somebody can help me with the dog versus dudeness metrics. Maybe Zach. Is Zach Lyons back there? He's a math guy.
Is S2, he's a math guy. No, he's not a math guy. We're just horrifyingly bad at math in, public settings. Is S2 still in business?
I think so. I haven't seen anything to tell us otherwise.
Because C.J. Stroud's rookie year obviously did not do them a great deal of service. And then, I'm sure somebody's running around from S2 this year being like, look at him this year. Look at him this year. He took a step back. We were right. Or something to that extent. When agents told their clients to stop participating in the S2 testing because of how poorly it went for C.J. Stroud and how much it didn't end up mattering for him.
I think we just immediately overcommitted to acting like it was an end-all, be-all for who a quarterback is as a processor, his ability to read defenses. It can still just be another piece of the puzzle. It can be part of the information.
615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Let's go to Chase.
What's up, fellas? How's it going?
Good.
Good deal. Yeah, just want to talk about the quarterback situation real quick. I mean, like you guys are saying, no number one pick has done anything hardly in the last 20 years as far as taking a team all the way to the Super Bowl and obviously winning it since Peyton. So best case, if we're looking to gain an extra couple wins next year, obviously build for the future in the draft, why not go get Mr. Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers, placeholder for a year, maybe 2 years. I know it's been toxic with the Jets there and his last few years, but it really allows you a chance to see what, your missing pieces are. Go get an Abdul Carter number one.
Well, no, he doesn't, because he's not going to run the offense that's here to be run. He's going to run his offense.
We don't learn anything, do we, about Brian Callahan as a head coach, as a play caller, if Aaron Rodgers comes here as his quarterback.
I don't learn about Callahan. I don't learn about the offense. Maybe it allows you to address things defensively to an extent. I don't learn a great deal about the wide receivers, because Aaron Rodgers, is he just going to want to play with his boys again? Like, I'm fine with Devontae Adams if that ends up being a path to Devontae Adams, but you have Calvin Ridley under contract. And that's really it. Like, it's Calvin Ridley, it's Traylon Burks, and Jaquan Jackson. And, like, two of the three, you would throw your hands up and say, well, you have one player under contract, really. One meaningfully contributing player under contract in the wide receiver room. So maybe you say, well, it's not anything that would hinder a young wide receiver core's growth, because there are no young wide receivers here for Aaron Rodgers to run afoul of the way that he did with Garrett Wilson, and just ended up bringing in Lazard and Devontae Adams, and that's who his guys were. Aaron Rodgers is he's not a cookie-cutter bridge quarterback. Like, didn't you have some spiel yesterday about Derek Carr kind of being the picture-perfect image of bridge quarterback?
To me, he is. I picture Derek Carr in terms of just stable, veteran stopgap.
So let's say he skips mandatory minicamp this year because he's got a pre-scheduled trip to Egypt again, the way that he did. Like, I assume he's not going to Egypt twice in the last 2 years, but like, let's say he has another trip planned and it's right in the middle of mandatory minicamp and he doesn't want to move the trip, and all of a sudden that creates a situation where you're having to find another quarterback, another camp arm to come in here, or Will Levis gets a couple extra reps that you wouldn't like to see him have because you want a solution at quarterback that's not Will Levis. He has so many variables that you cannot account for, and that do not actively, you're in growth mode. He does not help you grow.
I can't wait to see what the market for him looks like. We've only ever seen a market for Rodgers that is a sweepstakes. Who's going to get Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
It's the first time in his career, as he's moving teams, that's not the case. The thing that I want, the chaos I want, is for him to continue down the Brett Favre legacy path, and for the Vikings to say, Darnold, McCarthy, no, Rodgers. Come back to the NFC North.
Is this Postal Sid? Okay, Postal Sid is next.
Hey, guys, thanks for taking my call. I've been a long-time Eagles fan. The one time I actually had an issue with Howie Roseman was when he drafted Galen Rager over Justin Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
That was the worst pick I'd ever seen in my life when it came to him. Outside of that, the man's done great work. Love everything he does, and I hope he can continue to do it. That's all I have for you guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for the call. Hopefully he just avoids the stray beer bottles that are being thrown about at the next Eagles celebratory parade.
Yeah, Jefferson, 22 overall to Minnesota.
Darrington, last one of the day.
I got three of them things. I'm going to make them real quick. First of all, if the glove don't fit, you got to quit. Second of all, you want to talk about soundtracks? How about give me The Bodyguard, Whitney Houston? You know what I'm saying? That was great. Or you can give me Space Jam, the first one. You know what I'm saying? Not this second one. I don't know about the algorithm. Thirdly, what would it take to maybe, since the Saints seem so desperate to get on the cap, and they want to be up there high and they want to get another quarterback, what would be the possibility of trading that first-round pick for a pick swap, a third this year, a first next year, and Chris Olave? Just wondering. And give me Aaron Rodgers any day, any play, because he's going to be almost free because the Jets got to pay him still. Hey, I still love y'all, so y'all keep doing y'all good jobs. Lucas, love you, brother. Y'all have a good one.
Thanks for the call.
We love you too, Darrington.
That's a lot of picks. Chris Olave's not on a second deal, is he? He's not on a big money contract yet.
No.
So that would not
drafted in 2022.
That would not provide the cap relief situation. Also, he's not like Chris Olave doesn't change the game necessarily. He's a fine player, and Titans could certainly use more fine
Hasn't
players.
had much help at the quarterback position.
Fair enough. All right, rapid fire polls.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. How many of the Bengals stars, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson, will be in Cincinnati in 2025? 70% say 2 out of the 3. 18.2% say 3. 12% say only one of them.
I bet it's the 2 receivers.
Which NFL team will have the most interesting offseason? John says New England. They have the most money, a lot of holes. Free agents have not wanted to go to New England since Brady left. Interested to see if they spend money and make trades to surround Drake May. That's certainly an interesting one. Karen says the Jets. Feel like the Jets are always up there. Jack says the Raiders.
I mean, it's the Chiefs to me because the Chiefs were just in the Super Bowl, fell short, and now they have a million different questions about how they regain that level of competency that the Eagles just knocked them out of. But I think there's compelling. I mean, New England is a fascinating case.
It is. Do you believe Cam Ward when he says teams will regret not drafting him? 60% say no. 40% believe him and say yes.
Somebody might.
What Titans needs do you want to see addressed in free agency? Almost everybody has said quarterback. John has said offensive line and wide receiver. Cyber Eagle says right tackle. What's interesting is the idea of going after a left tackle, a veteran like a Ronnie Stanley on the market, and kicking J.C. Latham to right. They could have some flexibility there because of Latham's versatility.
Yes.
Which sport has had a bigger all-star / Pro Bowl drop-off?
Faster.
NBA or NFL? 51% say NBA, but it's close.
It's the NBA.
Probably, but nobody's watching the Pro Bowl activities. But it is probably the NBA.
Faster.
That's it. Polls are over.
Very good. All right. It's going to do it for us today. I am on primetime tonight because we had Sunday and Monday off. We'll talk more about the Titans then. See you.